Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining another one of our 3Search events. I'll start by just giving a very quick intro on who 3Search are, a bit about my role here. Then I'll hand over to our guest today, David Gray, just to give a bit of an intro on himself. Just very quickly, 3Search are a brand marketing product business development recruitment specialist. My role here is to manage our work winning or bids and proposals recruitment team. Probably like a lot of people here, I sometimes wonder, where my role sits in terms of sitting under marketing or sitting under business development or maybe completely siloed from that as well. One of our goals at 3Search is to be able to give clients and candidates the best recruitment experience that they'll ever have. And I think for me, like part of that is bringing together, quite a niche community of work-winning professionals and, aiming to, help people by sharing knowledge. And, part of that is by having, thought leaders such as David Gray and, to be able to kind of share their knowledge and vision of what the industry looks like for them. So today I was keen to get David on here just to talk about how valuable the APMP is to not only just the individual but for hiring managers as well. I will hand over to David just to give a bit of an introduction on himself and also a bit about his kind of like career to date, both in his current role and as chairman of the APMP UK chapter.
All right. Hi, everybody. And thank you very much, David, for firstly inviting me along to the event today and for the opportunity to speak to you. As a bit of a background to myself, I've got just over 19 years experience now working in bids and proposals. That's going through the kind of full suite of roles that you would expect in our profession, starting at kind of bid writer level, bid coordinator type of work, all the way through bid management, senior bid management, working in leadership roles as well within the sector as bid director or head of bids roles. And getting into leadership and coaching more laterally as well, coaching bid teams. And for quite a diverse range of organisations. I've worked in-house as I do now for Mighty, also for other organisations such as EDF, an energy provider, UK-based, with a national provision, of course. And I also worked for 6 years with AMBid, who were a leading bids and tenders specialist. And 3 of those years I spent as the managing director. And that gave me a lot of good experience working with a number of different types of bidders and work winners from all different sectors, industries, and indeed countries. So working now currently as Bid Excellence Director with Mighty, which is the UK's largest facilities transformation company. My role there is really about exercising our commitment to bid excellence, high quality proposal output. That comes through coaching, process design, proposal strategy, review, and these kind of things. I'm really speaking to you today, though, more with my APMP hat on. So I was elected to the International Board of the Association of Proposal Management Professionals, APMP, in 2021. And I served 2 years on that board before then being elected to the vice chair role, which I served in 2023. And then in 2024 was elected and moved into the chair role for 2024. So that's a bit of a background to me. And as I say, David, thanks for having me along to talk about APMP today.
Brilliant. Yeah, no problem. Look, yeah, thank you for joining. Like I said at the start, we want to try and keep this balance between the individual and and the organisation, and benefits, for both of those. Maybe as a top line, are you able to share some of the main benefits of membership just before we go into kind of tangible results of those?
Yeah, so I think the main benefits of membership is if you asked our members, and I often do, and I obviously have my own experience as a member before I began, working with the board at APMP. I think one of the first things is just being part of that community of bid and proposal professionals. So many of us will have experience of meeting people at work events or social events and being asked what you do, and you find yourself trying to explain that to people. They don't always understand. I found the very first APMP event I went to was a UK conference, and it was actually quite cathartic, meeting loads of people who immediately knew what I did, understood the challenges of my role, the unique activity that we get involved with in work winning and bids and proposals. So being part of that broader community, and there's over 14,000 members now of APMP across the world. So that's a big part of it for me, certainly, and I know for many others, is being part of that tribe, if you like, people who get it, and being able to engage, share knowledge with them, but also go to events and learn, kind of take different industry perspectives, for example. So there's a lot there. There's some more tangible and perhaps obvious benefits that you get from being a member of APMP as well. There's access to the body of knowledge, which is kind of referred to sometimes as the encyclopedia of work winning. And that's an online encyclopedia, if you like, curated from and formed by many years of bid profession best practice and from many different individuals and organizations. So it kind of presents a proven work winning methodology. It includes some Shipley frameworks. And it now also has an AI assistant, which is a helpful kind of navigational tool for that as well. So that's probably one of the most overt benefits. And of course, many people will be aware of the certification framework. So APMP's certification framework is a globally recognised, accredited bid and proposal profession framework. Which gives people in our profession the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to professional development, to continual improvement. I guess the opportunity to prove your knowledge, your expertise, and your value as a bid professional. But yeah, really, there's a range of benefits. I don't want to speak too long, but it will sound like a big sales pitch.
Yeah, of course.
There's more we can talk about as the conversation unfolds, maybe.
Definitely. Just in terms of, for any hiring managers on the call, are you able to share like any kind of like tangible results where, teams have kind of like signed up to membership, and, win rate is usually like the barometer of, how well, bid teams are performing. Have you got anything tangible that you're able to share with that, or maybe any case studies?
Yeah, I mean, we have tangible results metrics for some of the other areas, I guess, that APMP is active in terms of the certification, the impact of certification on individuals, for example. The issue we have with win rates, and I know there'll be many people on the call will kind of this will chime with them, is organizations measure them in a variety of different ways. So it's not something APMP actually reports on in terms of win rates of members, just because so many different member companies calculate them in different ways. They use very different methodologies for win rate calculation. What I would say is, though, we know anecdotally that APMP members are, by and large, primarily focused on the art or the craft of winning. I think that the strongest indicator for us that the value of APMP exists in terms of adding to win rates is the increase in our membership. We have had a fairly significant increase. I think it's something like 367% increase over the past 13 years. So it's for an association of our size, it's a marked increase. And I guess what I would say is, generally speaking, if your hiring managers or your organization who are setting up budget for that kind of thing, if they weren't seeing tangible value in being members or having their employees as APMP members, they probably wouldn't be renewing, never mind renewing in greater numbers. So it's something, as I say, we don't keep a specific measure of in terms of win rates, just because of the variation in how those are tracked. But I think, for us, the growth in the membership speaks volumes to that.
Yeah, good news. Well, look, on the other side of the fence, I think when historically when I've been taking briefs from clients, a lot of our clients want people who have gone down the APMP route for just to be able to kind of like demonstrate best practice and I guess engrossing yourself in the profession a bit more. I've had other hiring managers who have opted not to take people who've gone down that route, because I think in their mind it sometimes takes away from like the creativity or being more creative in their role. So for the individual, like how does membership, how will membership like help improve people's career and improve a person's skill set?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and I guess it depends on how you view that, the benefits of membership or certification. Certainly, to your point there on restricting creativity, I've never really viewed the encyclopedia, the body of knowledge, in that way. I've always just thought of it as a reference point, and I've always been very open with people that if you look at APMP's body of knowledge, it's advisory. It's telling you some things that have been done in the past that will help you or can help you win work and create compelling, persuasive, winning proposals. But it's impossible really to have a kind of one size fits all solution. So I think when you engage with that body of knowledge, the way I do and the way I would encourage everybody to is to read it and learn from it, take the insights, but then think about how you need to be creative to apply that to your bid or proposal. We know that, for example, a kind of basic example, there's content in the encyclopedia, that the body of knowledge on executive summaries, producing compelling, persuasive executive summaries. Yet, we know a lot of members will work, for example, in government bidding or public sector bidding in the UK, where executive summaries are often explicitly prohibited. So they're not part of the scored evaluation criteria, and in some instances you're explicitly told in the instructions not to submit an executive summary. So there's elements of the body of knowledge you would take and you would leave, but I think for the most part, understanding what's been successful for other craftspeople of bid and proposal profession over the years is something particularly valuable. It's bidding and proposals. It's not a science, because if you do the same thing, you won't guarantee the same results. But it's not completely an art either. It's not something you can just be creative and go completely off piste with. It is somewhere in the middle. It's like a craft. I know that's been said before, but it's I think that's why I prefer to kind of build all the knowledge of what's worked best for other people in the past, and then base how I apply that to bids and proposals on the specific bids and proposals I'm involved with, the size of the team, the size of the opportunity, the timeline, and everything else. So there's still plenty of scope for creativity. So I think from that perspective, it's that broader insight for individuals. Often people will understand if they've been with if they've been with a company or an organization, or even in a specific industry for a long time, they'll have that kind of mile deep knowledge and experience of bidding, but perhaps not the breadth of context and expertise that comes from wider work winning. And I think we can always be open to, or we should always be open to, learning from adjacent sectors and industries. What's going on over here? How can I apply that in my world? So that would be part of it in terms of the knowledge, the expertise that can be gained from the APMP body of knowledge and the certification framework. On a more kind of I guess rudimentary level, the other biggest benefit of APMP, as we see it from some of the surveys we've done for individual members, is increased salary earning capability. And I know it's a bit crude to talk about salary earning, but it's obviously very important. It's your very much in your wheelhouse, David, as well. So it's we've got some stats on that, some metrics on that. So on average, from the salary survey responses that we've seen from APMP surveys, about 8%, approximately people, people who have, members who've passed the APMP Foundation exam earn approximately 8% more than comparable roles who have not passed it.
Is that right?
And similarly, at practitioner level, that jumps even more. And members who are practitioner certified typically earn 24% more than those who don't have. So, those are quite big jumps,
Yeah.
particularly the second one, that would be quite a differentiator, I guess, with that earning capability.
Nice, love that. We spoke about bids and proposals, and I think, depending on the company, there's sometimes a grey area between what makes a bid manager and what makes a proposal manager. In your view, in terms of like job functionality, do you think the APMP serves a specific job functionality better than the other, i.e. bid manager versus bid writer, or proposal manager versus proposal writer, as an example? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's traditionally it was more around proposal writing, proposal management, and the body of knowledge is probably more in that space. But that's something that APMP's been well aware of for many years, that the worlds of bids and proposals is evolving, has evolved, and continues to. There's also a lot of adjacent roles in the kind of wider work winning ecosystem that we now cater to. So I wouldn't shy away from it. Yeah, definitely in the past and historically, if you look at the kind of beginnings of APMP, it was based around that proposal management, proposal writing expertise, how to draft and develop compelling and successful winning proposals. But yeah, we have always been trying, and others long before I was involved have been moving the association forward and being mindful of those adjacent roles, offering things for other roles. So there's micro certifications now, for example, which cover a much broader remit of roles. We have learnings and educational offerings for pricing, for graphics design, for example, these kind of areas that traditionally weren't really a massive part of APMP. But again, to recognise the growing number of members in those roles, and also their expectations of membership, that's something we've developed to make sure there's kind of maybe not something for everyone, but something for a much broader range of roles within the work winning space.
Because I think capture is, I think when I talk to people that are based in the US, capture seems to be something that's more prevalent in the US versus in the UK. And I'd be keen to get your take on, maybe as a job role, like how that is evolving, and what type of support APMP can give to companies that have ambitions to to move to more of a kind of like capture focused work winning function. What's your take on that?
Yeah, capture is it's one of these functions or roles that we've long seen as fundamentally important and critical, really, to building on. It comes before the bid and proposal, and it's there for a very valid reason, to help us qualify bids and to help inform our bid winning strategy, win themes, etc. In terms of how APMP supports it, we have a capture micro certification now that was launched a few years ago. That's been very popular. I think, though, what's perhaps needed is an ongoing push, and something we're always trying to do in the sort of educational space of what exactly capture is. I think there's still a lot of kind of misunderstanding or ambiguity around what it is. As you say, you're absolutely correct. It's a much more broadly recognised and used term, probably on the other side of the Atlantic in North America than it is in the UK and in Europe, perhaps. But I know a lot of organisations are still heavily involved in capture activity in the UK and in Europe. They just sometimes call it something else. They just see it as part of the sales cycle. So it might just be referred to as sales, you kind of pre-bid stage sales. And when you drill into it, they're doing it, and they're doing it well in a number of cases. It's just perhaps that the phrase capture is not as widely recognised. So there's maybe an educational piece there to do as well, or for us, an understanding that maybe not everybody will call it capture, and in the way that again, proposal is more commonly used in North America. We tend to talk about bids in the UK and Europe. Not all the time, but a lot
Sure.
of the time. And it might be the same with capture. It's just a difference in language or nuance depending on where
Yeah.
people are and what their organizational culture and language is as well.
Yeah, exactly that. You spoke about Shipley as well. Are you able just to kind of like build in how Shipley maybe integrates with APMP, Shipley methodology integrates with Shipley APMP, and also maybe whether, for anyone who's weighing up going down one route or the other, what that looks like and maybe what the benefits are for one or the other or both.
Yeah, so Shipley will always hold a special place within APMP because their founder, the late Stephen Shipley, was one of the people who started APMP. He drove the foundations of APMP really back in 1987. He invited at that time 11 other training companies and consultants to start what is now known today as APMP. So they're very much part of the history of the association, and we recognise that. And we get the question a lot around the different educational offerings. I suppose some of the differences between the two organisations, most obviously, is APMP is a professional membership association. We're here to serve our members. We're a not-for-profit organisation. Shipley is a training company that holds a membership itself with APMP, and their own Shipley employees are all members, or mostly are members of APMP too. So we do enjoy a close working relationship. And of course, they have their own kind of full complement of training courses. Otherwise, I mentioned before, the Shipley methodology is kind of baked into the APMP body of knowledge, and the APMP certification framework is based on that body of knowledge as well. So the learnings that are in the body of knowledge do include or are informed by Shipley methodologies as well. But yeah, there's some key differences between the organisations. I guess there's a number of organisations similar to Shipley. It would be remiss of me not to mention that there's approved training organisations and some well-known ones in the UK. Strategic Proposals, Bidcraft, Bid Toolkit are some of those. There's a range you can have a look at on the APMP and APMP UK websites. But yeah, there are some key differences, I guess, between the two organisations. I guess primarily Shipley is a training consultant provider. They're as a profit-making organisation. APMP is a member-serving organisation, so we have slightly different raison d'etres, as it were. But I think it's safe to say both organisations very committed to winning, very committed to the dissemination of best practice and upskilling the people that engage in those educational offerings.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'm keen to delve into certain industry sectors that your members come from, and maybe whether you've got any context on, I don't know, like infrastructure versus tech, versus property versus legal, etc. Like looking at your membership, what primarily, like where are the main, where are your members from, would you say?
Yeah, in terms of their sector specialism, so it's again, it's quite a broad kind of kirk of activity, really. We've got different members in a lot of different areas. I have to say that's actually something we're working on at the moment. Is historically the data tracking of industries and sectors hadn't been particularly on point within APMP, and so some of the data we have for that is in need of improvement, and it's actually something we're working on now in terms of bringing some of the data metrics on sectors and professions and industries up to speed. So we don't have a kind of a specific breakdown of those, but there's some prevalent professions in there. Technology and engineering, for example, they are areas that are of increased interest at the moment, and that may be partly because, and I'm sure we'll come on to this, but the kind of rise of AI, for example. But yeah, there's to your specific point, I think we have tech. If you look at tech, IT, telecoms, data, it actually outstrips infrastructure by about 3 to 1. So there's quite a big kind of difference between those. But yeah, otherwise, some of the other sectors we see, I think we mentioned IT, telecom, data. There's also obviously the more traditional construction. There's FM. Obviously, I'm speaking from Mighty today, very much involved in that space. But it is a real broad range. Our members come from a lot of different areas, and as you probably can imagine as well, with consultants and specialists on the membership as well. They're representing a much wider range of sectors and industries as well. So again, it's something we're very mindful of. We're here to kind of serve members of all shapes and sizes, really, with that particular interest in bids and proposals and work winning.
Yeah, and it's a good segue. So, for for the individual who might be on this call who's in a standalone role with an SME, what can they, how can they help, I guess, influence their role and where people above them maybe don't understand maybe don't even understand what bidding is, let alone like the benefits to to APMP, but just in terms of the membership, like how would you advise them to be able to speak to the powers above them to maybe help gain membership, or what can and I think maybe the follow-on question to that is that how can APMP like support the SME to to get membership and buy-in from powers above?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's worth maybe kind of pointing a few things out. About 80% of APMP's members work within bid and proposal teams that are made up of 8 or less people. So I think sometimes there's this big I thought it's really a misconception that APMP members work for these massive organizations with huge 45, 50 people bid teams or larger. We do have about 20% of the membership are made up of 9 or more individuals, bid and proposal professionals, but they generally work for the kind of FTSE companies, the Fortune 500 companies, the larger companies. But by and large, the vast majority work for small bid teams. To your particular point on individuals who are maybe like the sole bid or proposal professional in their SME organization, I think I've certainly met and engaged with a number of those people over the years, and I think it's quite a lonely and frustrating place to be. So sometimes I would say that the value of APMP membership might even be even more beneficial for those people, because it's really their only opportunity to learn from others in the same bid and proposal kind of profession as they're in, to have that exposure to best practice, to work winning ways. And I've met and had conversations with people who've worked for a long time in one company, and they've taken on a bid or proposal role, and they've not had any engagement or they've not been informed by any outside best practices. And what tends to happen is they know their organization really, really well, and they can pull things together, but they might have built up bad habits over the years, and not deliberately, just because they've never had any formal training or any professional development, any education in what they do. They've just kind of fallen into it, as a lot of people do, and kept going and built up a way of working. It might not even be that successful, but perhaps they've never heard of APMP, some of them. So I think if you're the kind of lone gun in your organization that's doing all the bids and proposals, I would say in some ways even more important to get that outside influence and information, engagement even. And also just for kind of motivation as an individual. I think having that community, feeling part of something bigger than just being a one-person specialist in an organization. As I say, it can be quite a lonely place to be. So being able to engage with others, that cathartic nature I talked about in my own intro, going somewhere, going to an event, or even engaging online in events where you feel, oh, there's other people like me, they share my challenges, they share my pain points, they share my ambition, my vision. And it's maybe one for you more than me, David, but I suppose my question would be, do we find in the profession that a lot of these sole bidder proposal professionals might end up seeking a role with a larger organization if they don't get that kind of APMP engagement, or some sort of external community to engage with, because as I say,
Yeah,
it can be quite a lonely place.
I think so. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would also, I think the point for people that are maybe stuck in places where they're not supported to, to kind of like further their, their knowledge or their education, is that there's a point that, like, as the profession is evolving, that they'll get left behind. So, like, the longer you leave it,
Yeah.
the longer you leave it, your skill set, I think, isn't as caught up as, some of your peer group as well. So, yeah, I think there's work to do for the individual in the standalone roles, but also from senior stakeholders that might not get bidding to probably educate themselves a bit more on it as well, and what those benefits are. Um, just on that, just in terms of the profession evolving, like, what's your view on what the future might hold for the profession?
Yeah, I think we've done quite well probably to get 32 minutes into this and only have one passing reference to AI. So
Yeah,
we probably need to unpick
definitely,
that at
for
this
sure.
point. Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time. It's definitely a time of transformation for the bid and proposal industry and profession. I think there's, it's exciting in that people are doing things differently. We see this much greater involvement of tech and more tech organizations coming into the profession as well to help support us. From my view, it's a really, it is going to be quite transformational. The impact that the technology, particularly AI, can have on bid writing is, I think, for a lot of people becoming much clearer now than it was even a year ago. We saw this quite recently at the BPC Europe event in Barcelona, which was an APMP event, just going by a kind of straw poll of hands in the room as to who was beginning to embrace AI or who was kind of more pro AI, if you had to be pro or anti. And there was a marked increase from when we'd asked the year before, where people were quite sort of suspicious of it, almost quite skeptical, weren't sure it was going to be for us. So I think AI is definitely a part of that. What we're also trying to do, and something I'm really committed to doing, is in my role as chair, is really trying to raise the profile of bid and proposal as a profession, as an industry, and actually, try and raise the awareness amongst organizations, and particularly among C-suite members of organizations, of the really transformative impact that our profession can have. I still get a lot of members who will say to me, "Oh, my organization thinks we're a marketing function, or they think we're an admin function. They think we just fill out forms." And they feel very devalued by this. And of course, if they feel devalued, they're probably picking up the phone to people like you, asking if they can move somewhere where they're going to be more valued. So I think the organisations that realise, Rick Harris, who's the CEO of APMP internationally, has a great phrase he uses. He says, "We're the people that keep the lights on in the buildings and the cars in the car park." For a while, it lost its meaning during the COVID times, when nobody was in these buildings and there was no cars. But I think his point is well made. We're the rainmakers, the revenue generators, particularly for organisations who need to submit these bids, proposals for most of the work they win, and that's, it needs to be seen as a real. I referred to the word craft earlier. It's a bit of a niche craft, but it's it's a very important one and very really transformational. So that's something I'm keen on doing, is raising that profile. We've got a leadership academy launching this year, which was announced in Orlando last year at BPC. There's been a lot of excitement and interest in that. And again, that's about making sure that people in our industry feel they can progress into leadership roles with the support and the backing of our profession, and that they get that bid and proposal specific leadership education. So that's quite an exciting product. We'll talk more about that at the forthcoming BPC event, but it's very different to anything we've done in the past, to any of the other educational offerings APMP has in the market currently. But again, specifically designed to give our members the tools, the skills, the experience that they need to be able to progress their careers, and hopefully not losing people to other career paths because they feel they can't progress in the one they're in.
Yeah, it's already as a profession. Yeah, from my side, it's already very hard to find people that have, good and relevant experience. So yeah, the more people that we can, retain and get into it, the better. Just on the back of that, actually, so you spoke about AI, briefly. Can you see roles that would be created as a result of having AI? And maybe the counter question to that is that, yeah, do you think there's any roles at risk at all from it at all?
Yeah, I mean that's a big question. It's asked a lot at the moment. Certainly, if you speak to even the vendors, the sellers of AI, that's not what they're saying at the moment. To the last part of the question about it's not there to replace people.
Sure.
I've been, really throwing myself into it, particularly over the last 6, 9, 12 months, and getting my, kind of experience built up in it. And I share that view. It's an incredibly, or it can be used incredibly powerfully to accelerate and to unleash efficiencies and productivity, efficiencies, particularly time savings. But my view personally is you still need a competent human who knows what, if you look at it in the application of writing, for example, you need somebody who knows what good writing looks like. You need somebody who knows what good customer focused writing looks like. And AI, I don't think is quite there yet. And some of the experts in the AI field are even saying that it may never get there to the point where it understands the same level of or has that same nuance as a human being in terms of identifying what should be in a proposal and what should not. So, I mean, APMP embraces it. As I mentioned, we're looking at an AI Academy this year. We've also partnered with a US tech firm, Rohirrim, to build a large language model of our own, which is called PIN, the Professional Intelligence Navigator, and that's one of the member benefits I touched on earlier. It's effectively like an AI assistant that sits on the APMP website for members to access. But I personally as well, I've been embracing it. I can see a lot of advantages to it. In terms of new roles maybe being created, I think it might be more around what existing roles do. So you'll have bid writers who I think with the use of AI can spend maybe more time enhancing, revising, improving these first draft responses that take up so much time, and actually building on them, getting through some of the things that can be lost in tight timelines. And that's quite a common piece of feedback I hear, is that organizations are often frustrated that they do all this excellent work in capture and sales to define win themes, win strategies, price to win and everything else. And then it flows through to the bid. And perhaps because of the volume of content that needs to be drafted in a short space of time, or a proportionately short space of time, sometimes what happens is these win themes, the real key compelling stuff that was agreed and defined up front, doesn't always flow through the bid and the final content. So, and that's because of the amount of time it can take to just draft bid writing, draft and bid write responses, particularly for larger bids and proposals. It doesn't always happen, but it can, and I think AI can help us get to that first draft from blank page much more quickly than previously. And as I said, that then frees up bid writers' time to rather than searching through case studies and CVs and searching through previous method statements for applicable content and then having to start bespoking them. If that first part can be done very quickly, and this is just one example of its application, but if that part can be done very quickly, again, it frees them up to be speaking to the subject matter experts and understanding what is the specific solution that we're going to offer this customer that meets their identified need. what are our differentiators? What are our discriminators? How do I make sure I articulate those in a persuasive way in the response? Things that the AI tool cannot yet do, or cannot certainly do as well as a human. And I think that's where the real value add will come, for the bid process, but also for the bid writers. And a lot of them will welcome it as well, because they'll be saying, well, actually, that's the bit of the job, that initial blank page to first draft, that I don't enjoy so much. I enjoy working with the SMEs. I enjoy trying to tell the story of how our solution will meet our clients' requirements. It's building up, perhaps a 25-page response that's a method statement based on delivery that's come previously that they maybe don't enjoy so much. So for some, there's certainly plenty of opportunities there to embrace the technology and enhance their own kind of ways of working through that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves. I'm keen to hand over to the audience, just to maybe put some questions into the chat that they might have for you, and maybe just while they're just having a quick think about some of the things that they want to ask. I was just keen for maybe you to explain what your relationship is with the APMP UK chapter, and how APMP International works with them as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. So APMP, the board that I sit on is if you like the parent organization. It's an international body. Our board is comprised of directors from various countries across the world, probably going west to east from kind of California all the way across to Japan and everywhere in between. And across the world, we also have local, more regional chapters. And they're really important members and organizations in themselves, because what they do is they offer that local, regional, specific knowledge, insight, industry events that internationally we can't deliver. So it gives you very kind of tailored, relevant content for your country. So from the UK chapter's perspective, the UK has a very significant voice actually within the wider APMP International. Indeed, 2 of our last 3 chairs, myself included, have come from the APMP UK chapter. Many people will know of Stephen Coles, who served 2 years prior to me in 2022, was also from the UK chapter. So yeah, the UK APMP UK chapter, a really important part of the organisation. Particularly, we've got now about, I think the APMP UK chapter has over 2,700 members in itself, which is a pretty decent share of 14,000 globally. And our membership is actually balanced now. I think last year we hit for the first time the balance between members in the US and members outside of the US. So it's exactly 50-50 now. It used to be historically quite a US-led association. Most of the members were there. We're at a point now where 50% are in the US and 50% are elsewhere. But yeah, we work closely with the UK chapter. We attend their events, they attend ours. I always enjoy meeting up with their volunteers. They have a fantastic board of their own, and I work well with many of them on events. We don't get involved in planning their events or anything like that, but it's nice to go to them and engage with their members, and likewise, it works well the other way. So a good partnership relationship with them, and our members as well like having a chapter that is local to them. They can go to UK-based events if they are UK-based, instead of just having the option of the global events too.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Right, well, there's a few questions that have popped up in the Q&A. So for anyone else, please feel free to pop them in. So we'll start at the bottom and try and get through as many of these as quickly as possible. First of all, the slides, and there'll be a recording of this that will be shared on YouTube. So if anyone wants to pick up on this at a later time, it will be available. Hi, David. Sorry for the tough question. I worry about a ceiling to how far a bid role can climb the ladder / advanced career, especially as I'm outside of London. Do you have any advice or stories to combat this assumption?
Yeah, that is a good question, isn't it? I guess that kind of plays back to the leadership point I made as well about trying to embrace these more senior skills, going beyond bidding proposals. What I would say though is, and I've always found this, being involved in bids and proposals can give you a very unique situation where you have exposure to some of the most senior people in your organization. And sometimes you have to do a lot of managing up. So you might be relying on these senior people to provide you with content or a case study or some figures, particularly for financials. So you've got this opportunity to then put yourself on their radar. So I think, you know, in terms of some pragmatic tips that I've used in the past that have worked for me is just maximizing those opportunities. A lot of bid and proposal professionals are, you know, kind of self-professed and admitted introverts. That can sometimes hold people back. So I think working on how you can advance your career by being less introverted or trying to build skills that are not typically introvert skills, taking advantage of that exposure you can get to these senior colleagues, but also trying to figure out how you can help them and actually being somebody who they see as a kind of helpful advocate rather than somebody that's just chasing them for information or sign off or stats, you know, trying to understand how you can best help them, how you can make their life a bit easier. But also, yeah, perhaps looking at some of these senior level skill sets such as leadership and looking at how you can develop. And if you can't find those in your organization, again, broader career advice, you might want to consider, you know, could you, for example, sit on the board as a trustee of a charity or something like that to gain some experience of board leadership, to gain some experience of being a director or a trustee. Again, these are things which you'll know, David, will enhance a CV and again, give you the opportunity to perhaps climb the career ladder further than you would by purely staying in your own kind of bid and proposal writer or bid and proposal management role.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got another one here. I've moved from an organisation who valued and understood the importance of APMP to a company who are not even aware of APMP, and I want to convince them to acknowledge as well as invest in APM training and certification for all the bid team members. Where do you think I suggest I should start with the educational piece?
Yeah, another good question. I don't know if is there a recording of this. You could send them that as a starting point.
Yeah, it's available by the way for everyone. Yeah, we can do that.
I think, you know, joking aside, you're probably speaking about some of the things that we have covered in this conversation. You know, there's a lot of benefits. I can see that's come from Michelle. And Michelle, you know, if you want to reach out to me on that, we could have a separate conversation on that. There's other there's kind of literature and things I could point you to which might be helpful for your organization. But yeah, I mean, first of all, don't feel like you're alone in that. There's still a number of organizations who've not heard of APMP, and it's not that uncommon, particularly in smaller organizations or where the bid and proposal function is smaller or less sophisticated or has been around for less of a time. So yeah, I think it's some of the benefits we talked about. Less mature is a good way of putting it. Thank you, Michelle. That's the word I was looking for. So yeah, I mean, there are a number of organisations in that space, and it is a bit of an educational piece. I think getting along to local events is a good entry level way of doing that. If you're, I think you're UK based, Michelle. If that's the case, you have a look at APMP UK membership pages or the website, and they've got events for members and non-members to attend. Things like that. Even if you can come back to the organization having gone to an event or even a webinar, and then disseminate some sort of briefing for your colleagues. Again, it's a kind of useful and very visual and visible way of saying, here's some of the value I get from that organization or that I got from this event. And again, that kind of thing helps raise the profile with organizations, because they start seeing, oh, actually, there's loads of value from this. We've now got a much better understanding of the forthcoming Procurement Act, for example, because somebody's been to this event and then they've cascaded a briefing paper, and there's some really insightful takeaways for us there. So it's that kind of thing I think will help, as well as the kind of more salesy side of looking at the brochures and the benefits of the membership. But happy to have a chat with you, Michelle, about that separately if it would help.
Great stuff. Great question here for you, David, just about your career and maybe how jumping from one side of the fence from a big consultancy into internal resources helped your career. Yeah, do you think that's the case, going from maybe something where you're covering lots of different topics to then going into something where you're just specialised in the one topic? How's that helped?
Yeah, it has been tremendously helpful for me actually to get that understanding. And I think, I went from EDF, this large kind of multinational and UK-wide division of it in EDF Energy, to a small boutique bid consultancy. So I think at the time EDF had hundreds of thousands of employees, and AM Bid, when I went, had 4. So it was quite a big culture shift, as much as anything. But in terms of the learnings, that's where it's the difference between large organizations and SMEs becomes much more marked and clear. And you understand as well, with the big companies, you get that insight and understanding into all the mechanics of bid governance, of pricing, of all the different people involved, solution architects, design. There's just such a wide plethora of roles for these big organizational bids. So for me, absolutely, it was useful to have worked in a big company before I went to consultancy, because I had that understanding and awareness of what some of our typical clients would be facing in terms of internal challenges, processes, sign off, etc. And now going the other way and going from the consultancy back to an in-house role, what I've got is a really broad experience of working with loads of different organizations, clients, companies, from micro, one-man bands almost, up to, large FTSE 100 companies. And again, that breadth of knowledge and perspective is really quite invaluable, because you learn so much just about different approaches to bidding. And of course, that's learnings that you can then share and build your kind of current career around. So it's, I've taken those learnings, harnessed them, and I'm now helping Mighty build in different ways that centre of bid excellence I talked about, but also coaching and passing some of these learnings and insights on. And of course, you gain a lot of anecdotes, a lot of examples, kind of case studies of your own, of what works well and maybe what doesn't. And if you've had a kind of lesson learned in the past that you can refer to, it helps bring it to life for people, and you can help people avoid making mistakes that you maybe made or experienced earlier in your career that you can refer to. So yeah, there's a heap of really useful value comes out of working in both sides of the fence, as you phrased it.
Yeah. Another one here. Apologies if we've already covered this. What's the average commitment to learning to becoming APMP qualified?
Commitment to learning. That's a really good question, actually. People work at different rates, but there's not, in terms of if you look at the foundation certification, which is the entry level certification, I guess depending on the number of years experience you have, we get people who will self-study for those, and they can, kind of get through them after, maybe sort of 20 or 30 hours. You get others who will spend longer. Most of the approved training organizations, and indeed if you're self-studying, you can do this too. You can flex and scale. There are advantages to going along to a specific certification event, doing all your learnings at once and then sitting the exam. But I think for a lot of people, that's a bit too much and can be quite intense quite soon. People sometimes prefer to learn at their own pace. So there's kind of flexible options there, but I would say it would depend on the certification and also the level of experience. So sorry, Natasha, that's a bit of a politician's response to say it depends. But again, if you wanted to have a conversation about a specific certification and your level of experience, I'd be kind of happy to give you some advice, or my view anyway, on the kind of time commitment, if that's what you're looking for, that might be required to achieve that certification.
Brilliant. I've got a really interesting one from Georgia Downey here. This is kind of relevant to what we see as well, and it plays to what we spoke about certain industries being more prevalent with membership. particularly for like emerging industries. So she mentions EV charging here. So how well does the APMP body of knowledge support emerging industries, for instance, EV charging?
Yeah, so I would say by definition and because of the makeup of our membership, none of the content in the body of knowledge tends to be specific to an industry or profession, emerging or otherwise. The content is aimed at best principles of work winning, of writing compelling and persuasive bids. So on the one hand, you might say, oh, well, is that going to be relevant to EV charging? It should be relevant to everything. That's the point of it. These are transferable best practice learnings, insights that you should be able to apply to all sectors and industries. Now, of course, there'll be some exceptions. I mentioned one about executive summaries not always being applicable to all bids. But the idea behind the body of knowledge is that we'll support all industries. And if we get to a point, and you know, the other thing I would say about it is it's constantly evolving. It's an organic piece of work. And indeed, we're in the middle of a review of some areas of the content at the moment. So it's important that it keeps up to date. So if there was something specific in the EV charging world, for example, that you felt the body of knowledge didn't cater to, or some new way of bidding or submitting proposals that perhaps wouldn't be covered, or you wanted to check was covered. Again, it's by member engagement that these things evolve. So if people say to us, oh, we've just been recently bidding in this way and we've never done that before, then we would hear that and take that on board and think, right, do we need to then look at the body of knowledge and understand which areas that new innovation or that new development impacts the body of knowledge, and we would make sure it's then refreshed and kept up to date with whatever new content is out there. And we're doing this at the moment. As I say, AI is going to have an impact on it as well, and people work very differently now to we did even 5 years ago because of the COVID pandemic. So that's another reason we're looking at updating it. The world pre-COVID was not quite as au fait with Teams and Zoom and these kind of things, and they're used much more widely today. So but yeah, that's I guess the answer for that one is that all of it should be applicable to some extent because it's not industry or sector specific in its design.
Do you need to be a member to do the training courses?
You do, yes. Yeah, that's a quick, easy one to answer. Yeah. So if you want to get a APMP certification, you do need to be a member to get and to retain those certifications. What I would say, and I didn't touch on this earlier, but I still think it's one of the most cost-effective memberships that is out there. The annual cost of APMP membership is based on the current exchange rate about £138. So you get an awful lot of member value for that £138. As we've talked about. But yeah, you do need to be a member to achieve the certification and then retain it.
Brilliant. Probably only got time for one more question, and then David, I'll connect you with the questions that haven't been answered so far. So yeah, for anyone that hasn't had a question answered, yeah, we will connect you with David and hopefully get some answers for you. On the technology front, what does the APMP member experience of using bid technology such as automation of answers, applying boilerplate answers to questions as a first pass before tailoring with questions before becoming more detailed?
Yeah, I'll be quick because I know we're short of time.
Yeah,
but yes, sure. Exactly that for the first thing. That blank page to first draft is where a lot of people are using it in terms of the bid development and writing side of things. It can also be very helpful for editing. So if you have, for example, a response that's too long, you can put that into an AI tool and say, can you rewrite this? You prompt the engine to rewrite it in fewer words. You can also prompt it to change the tone. So you might say, write this in a more active way or a more customer focused way. And these, by the way, are all the reasons why I still believe strongly you need a human in charge of the process, because you need somebody who knows what prompts to put in, but you also need somebody to review the output and say, has the change in tone or the reduction in words materially influenced the strength of the content? And that's the kind of human side of it. The last thing I would say is a lot of members are actually using it for competitive intelligence and client intelligence as well. So that's perhaps an area we don't often think it being applied in the bid and proposal space. But again, getting getting AI tools to help with that competitor analysis and even client analysis has been something I know a lot of members have said to us they're doing as well. So something less obvious, but it's something that our members are using it for.
Brilliant. All right, David, well, look, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to us today. For the audience, there will be a recording of this, which we'll share back with you, and hopefully you can use it to help fight your own battles internally. And for anyone that didn't have a question asked, we'll connect you with David afterwards, and hopefully we can get those questions answered for you. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and yeah, we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. Thanks everyone for joining.
Take care. Bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.